Good morning, everyone. This is Jennifer Sanchez. You are watching us live with the Wise Morning Coffee Chat Show. So, we're super excited to be on this morning. Make sure you say good morning. Let us know what you're drinking. But before we go into conversation, let me show this quick video clip of our sponsors, Transformation Financial. So stay tuned. All right, that was Transformation Financial, our sponsors. Woohoo! So, um, I am Jennifer Sanchez, the founder of the Women's Institute of Self Development Efficacy, WISE for short. And this is a show about having inspiration, conversation, motivation, and bringing amazing people, specifically women. And I love to interview minority women at that, highlight them. What are they doing? How are they serving their communities? So, of course, that's who Leonor, go for it, girlfriend. Can you
Hello?
hear me, Leonor?
Oh, it just
Yeah.
froze a little bit. Okay, yes, I can hear you. Good morning. Good morning. How are you? I am Leonor Gil. I am originally from Michoacan, Mexico. Yay! Been in the States many, many years. My background is in finance, about 30 years or so. Happy to be here talking to my good friend Jennifer and hoping to say a couple of words of inspiration for somebody out there.
Yes, you certainly will. So Leonor, she is amazing, guys. You guys gotta definitely check her out and learn more about her services. But her spirit, so you make me feel more peaceful around you, right? Like Leonor, you have that energy that brings some calmness, right, to some anyone that comes around you. I don't know if you've ever heard that before, but for me and my experience, that's how I feel around you. So I just wanted to share that before we go into more conversation. Um, so of course, this is the part for those that are watching. This is an interactive show. Feel free to conversate. Feel free to ask questions. We can show your comments live on the air. So this is the part where we talk about coffee time. So I'm a big believer that I don't know if you've ever done this, Leonor, but I sure have. You meet someone, you really like them, and you're like, let's go get a cup of coffee, right?
Absolutely. Yes, the first thing that comes out, hey, let's continue the conversation, right?
Yeah, over like it's always over. Well, I know there's dinners and I know that you could definitely get drinks, but most of the time entrepreneurs be like coffee. So I took that concept when pandemic, started and I was like, and I would do it like, hey, let's have coffee chats, right? Even prior to this show, I would do it in my private group, like, I'm gonna have a coffee chat. So now I want to bring it and I want to know what are you drinking this morning, Leonor, so everyone knows what are you drinking.
I love, 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 love coffee. So of course, I make myself this humongous cup of coffee because I can never run out. I have at least 2 or 3 cups of coffee every morning. I am just recently transitioned to drinking coffee with nothing in it, just black, no sugar, no cream, which took a little bit of getting used to, but I just love, love my coffee. However, once in a while, I'll treat myself if it's café de olla. For those of
Mhm.
us from Mexico, no café de olla. It's brewed in a pot versus in a Keurig or whatever, and it's with cinnamon and brown sugar. Oh my goodness, it's so delicious. So once in a while, I'll just make an exception, but most of the times, I'll just have my regular coffee.
Yeah, welcome to the dark side. That's how I drink my coffee. Just black, no cream, no sugar. But I tell this, I think people get to know your personality by the way you drink your coffee. I remember one of my friends, she used to put like 8 sugars in her coffee. And I was like, "Are you drinking sugar? Instead of drinking coffee with sugar, you're drinking sugar with coffee." I
Yeah,
would tell her that all the time.
yeah.
Um, so if you guys are watching, let us know what you're drinking. I got my Ladies Are Limitless mug, and también I black the Dunkin' Donuts, the Keurig. Just pop it in that thing, and I have my
Yes,
coffee. And from watching this show, I've learned a lot of ladies like to put honey in their coffee.
that's what I heard. Yeah.
And I've started actually, I have honey from Mexico. So I grab a little spoonful of honey and put it in my coffee in the morning if I want something sweet once in a while. And I do have a sweet tooth. So that works out really well. Well,
That you can supplement it. But I totally, I have heard that, are you gonna have a little bit of coffee with your sugar? My mom, oh, rest her soul, she was one of those. Oh no no, otro mija, two more. I'm like, mom, that's a lot of sugar for you. Oh no no, just a couple more. She
oh.
ended up having, oh my goodness, 6 to 8 teaspoonfuls of sugar in her coffee. So it was the other way around. You're having a little bit of coffee with your sugar.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I could see that. And then I think it's just really cultural for us, the coffee
Mhm.
and our parents
Oh
drinking
yeah.
it. And, I know you're from Michoacan, so I remember like going to Mexico, and that's what I would do, drink coffee with my grandma with
Yeah.
with
Me
animal
too.
crackers.
Oh, crackers. It's really, I mean, not to get dark or anything, but the first time I remember drinking café de olla in Mexico was at a funeral. You know how in Mexico you have the whole night, people stay up to do the wake. And of course, they come around with cups of café de olla. And of course, for the adults, it's spiked with tequila or something. But that was the first time I remember drinking café de olla because you got to stay up the whole night. So I guess people are, used to drinking coffee at that time.
Now I'm gonna ask you, Leonor, do you got something in your coffee? You got a little extra? No, I'm just like, you got that coffee spike, girlfriend? No, just joking.
Oh, not on a Monday morning.
No,
No, no, no, no,
no, no,
no.
I love that. So, okay, awesome. So that's coffee time. So for those that are watching, feel free to share what you're drinking this morning. We'll show the comment on the air. Um, but I definitely wanna thank you first and foremost before we go into conversation because Leonor and her team sponsored our conference. So if those are wondering like why does she still have an old date February 25th, of an event? Well, because I still Leonor and her team were sponsors for the conference. So we just had it. I feel like it was last week. I don't even know my days. You know what? When I put on events, and I don't know, Leonor, if this has ever happened to you, but when I put on large events, I take a whole month break sometimes. Like I can't know my Monday from my Saturday. Like it's all a blur, you know. And I was even just talking to someone, and I was like, "When was our conference?" And they're like, "Last week." I was like, "Oh yeah, yeah, last week." Like I don't know anymore.
No,
um,
but thank you so much, first of all, for inviting me back. I like you. I'm like, excuse me, it was such a memorable conference. I mean, it was just one of a kind, to be honest with you. I mentioned to you that it felt so, so good. It was just the right balance of a lot of different things: education, life balance, health. I mean, it was very nicely done. I really appreciate it, and I appreciate the opportunity to have us there to share, financial literacy, which is what we do.
yes. So let's go into that, Leonor. Like, how did you get into like the financial industry and the financial literacy area?
I'm gonna take us right back to many, many years ago. In life, you always have to have somebody that you look up to, right? You always, even though sometimes you don't realize, you have mentors or you have people that you're like, oh my God, I want to be like that when I grow up. I remember many, many years ago, growing up in Mexico, my uncle Jose, he was working for a bank, and he would always come home, all suited up and just all nicely done. And even when he was in school, I would be looking at his steno pads and looking at what he was writing. I'm like, what is this? Or, shorthand or whatever it was at the time. But I didn't realize that since then he had been inspiring me to be something like him. So I not knowing much or any better, I should say, when I was in school, I kind of gravitated towards finances and accounting. I think he was the one that studied accounting. But anyway, so even back when I was in high school, I'm like, I'm going to go into an accounting field. Well, did realize that when I went to college that accounting was really not the thing for me. It was really more finance. And the reason for that, Jen, is because I always wanted to be in the service of others. Accounting, I thought was like very dry, very, just uh, uh, the theory focused. It was not something that I really enjoyed doing. I could do it because I passed my tests, but it was not something that I enjoyed doing. So I found out that finance, was a combination of both, where you're helping folks, and that gave me a lot of gratification. So when I was in college, I was like, okay, you know what, I'm going to go into finance. And of course, even back when I'm talking about many years ago, I wasn't quite sure exactly what I wanted to do because I just didn't know. In my head, my uncle was in the back of my head, and I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to do banking because that's exactly what he did. Um, but that's kind of how it started, to be honest with you.
Mhm.
Back in the day, I
Mhm.
was kind of having that interest in finance and in working with people. But as I started kind of thinking back to my journey, I've always been in a position where I'm always helping somebody. So that coupled with the numbers piece of it was kind of like the perfect fit for me. So
Yeah.
I switched, like I think it was my third year in college. I switched my career from accounting to finance, and got my degree in finance. And out of college, it's kind of funny, fast forward like, how many years now, the very first job that somebody offered me was working for an insurance company. But I'm like, no, that's not exactly what I wanted to do. So I actually, I was in Houston at the time. I moved back to Chicago, and I went at the time. I was living with my in-laws, and I was asked to go to look for a job, but not for me, but it was for my sister-in-law. I was at a company where they offer mostly like factory type of work. But anyway, so I went. I had nothing else to do, so I went, and I'm sitting there waiting for my sister-in-law, and I'm like, I'm just going to ask somebody here if they have any type of financial related jobs. Well, I'm glad I did because I stepped up to the woman and I said, hey, I'm here with so and so, and I'm looking for an office position, but in finance. Well, to make a long story short, Jen, a week later, actually about a week and a half later, I was hired with a very prominent management company here in Chicago, and that's kind of where it all started.
Wow. There was two things that I caught from that story that I can appreciate was the fact that your mentor, your uncle, like I can relate to what you were saying because I also, growing up, I just looked at how someone dressed and I
Mhm.
was like, "Oh, I like how they
Yeah.
look." Like, is that something that that attracted me, right? So, and I know that mentorship is so critical for like young. I know the things that you do on the side is like provide mentorship to young women. Like I feel like Latinas and minorities in general, we don't have enough representation or examples of what we could be when we grow up.
Mhm.
I felt like I didn't growing up. I had to kind of figure that out, watch movies. You know what movie inspired me, Leonor? If anyone knows this movie, Hitch. Hitch. I remember seeing it in high school, and I only liked how Eva Mendes dressed. She was like a journalist,
Yes, yes, yes.
and I
Very
saw a
professional.
Latina, a Latina in suits, and I thought, "That's what I wanna look like. That's a Latina in suits." Like, you
Hmm.
and maybe for someone they might laugh, but, like, I really had no other example.
No, you know what? And it's nothing to laugh about. It's, very, very real. I mean, I grew up also not having a whole lot of role models. Of course, I was very fortunate to have somebody, but it was a male, as a role
Mhm.
model. However, I also grew up thinking that there were not a whole lot of people who liked me. In fact, that company that I mentioned where I got my very first job out of college, I was the only Hispanic, the only woman working there. And this it's a small company, but a very, very prominent company. But I stood out like a sore thumb. I was the only one. And of course, it was a beautiful environment. I got to dress in nice suits and things like that. But I didn't have anyone else that I could look up to, or I could say, "Oh yeah, that's my role model." And yes, mentorship is something that I gravitate to because one, I didn't have that, but I want to provide that for others as well. And you mentioned young Latinas in particular.
Yeah, no, I think it's great, good stuff. And I
Mhm.
think we gravitate towards our calling early on, right? And we don't even realize it. So you gravitated towards the finances, which is pretty cool. So I guess so people can understand. I know, like for those that are watching, if they don't know, right? What exactly does transformation financial do? Just so that people are aware of what you're doing right now.
Okay, so let me just continue with my story. A little bit more about my background. For the last, I, you don't even want to say the years because that's dating myself. But it's okay. I gotta own my age. Age is just a number, right?
It is. You're only, what do they say? You only get better with age, or there's a saying with it. Yeah, right?
Just get better by like wine, right? The
Mm-hmm.
more age, the better. But I've been actually in the finance industry for over 30 years. The first company that I mentioned to you, I was there for 20 years and did very well, mind you. But I was working with high net worth individuals, doing the administration, the operations, and the portfolio management support. And what we did was basically manage somebody else's money. But these individuals had a lot of money, of course, and they were able to afford paying this company thousands of dollars every year to have their portfolios managed. Um, which is great, if you have that kind of money and you want to pay somebody to take over your finances, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, then I finished my 20-year run there. I went to a securities company where I was working with what's called the buy side, the sell side. The buy side is when you're on the consumer side. The sell side is when you're providing services. So we were working with large institutions, once again, helping these large companies make money through products that they could use, uh, products that the employers, not the employers, I'm thinking of the executives could take advantage of, again, to protect their wealth, to make more money. Well, that was another 15 years or so of my life. Well, yeah, we always say, what does it say? What's that saying that in Espanol dice, uno pone y Dios dispone. So, we have our own plans, but really it's up to God to decide what it is that your destiny is going to be. So I thought I was going to retire from the second company. But last year in January, I was let go. Myself and 500 other people, we were let go.
Oh, wow.
So that kind of gave me the push, the little, kick in the rear, if you want to call it that, to do other things. So last year was a kind of one of those aha moments. It was like, what am I going to do with my life? I'm not a young spring chicken anymore. What do I want to do with the rest of my life, type of thing? So I started thinking, and I'm like, you know what? I want to do something that's going to be impactful, something that's going to really help people be better
Yeah.
people, to have a better life. So in my little journey there, I'm like, okay, what is that called? So it was kind of funny, Jen, because a few years ago, somebody had gifted me a book called The Purpose Driven Life.
I read
And
for it.
yes, exactly. And I kind of like perused it and I'm like, oh, okay, great, whatever. But I didn't really pay attention to it. Well, this last year, I had a lot of spare time, so I joined a book club. And guess what? That was the book that we were reading at the time, the Purpose Driven Life. But this time around, it hit me like a ton of bricks. It was like right there all along. And I was in tears actually because I found my purpose. I'm like, oh my God, I finally know what I'm supposed to do. But it's funny enough that I've been doing it all along. I've been in servitude. I've been serving others, helping others, and I didn't realize it, that that's the thing that just brought me so much gratification. So I'm like, okay, this is the time for me to take that next a step, make a leap, take a leap, and then go into service to the community, to people like you and I, who probably don't have millions of dollars in the bank or in investments that we can, afford, someone to hire, and pay them thousands of dollars to manage our investments. So transformation financially actually had been kind of showing up in my life a few years back. Blanca, who I know personally, had introduced me to Transformation Financial, and a few years ago, I actually became a client of Blanca and others on the team. And I love the concept. I love the fact that we were working with families, that we were making a difference in families, and we were right there in our backyard working with just people who didn't have the resources once again, and people who were afraid to just open up to, someone at the bank or some other institution. And I'm like, oh my goodness, this is it. This is what I'm going to do. It was very scary, to be honest with you, because you're in business for yourself, but not by yourself, type of thing. And you're an entrepreneur. You become an entrepreneur, and to me, that word was like, ugh, I don't want to do that. I don't want to go into business by myself. It was like I had always had this stigma around being a business owner, right? But I had to have that confidence in myself, first of all, that I could do this, and know that I was going to be able to make a difference in somebody else's life. So that's kind of how it all started. To join Transformation Financial, I did have to take an exam, security. Well, I was already securities licensed, but this required that I take a life license exam for the state of Illinois. So that's what I did last year. But then I decided to go on a 3 month sabbatical. But that's kind of how it all started. And I've been doing this full time since July of last year, and I'm loving it. I get to work with the wonderful people. And one thing that I'd like to share is, which was not expected. When I first announced, well, first of all, I made the decision to go in 1,000%, and then I announced it to my family. My kids were jumping up and down with joy. They're like, "Mom, we finally have somebody who's going to be able to help us, somebody who's going to guide us." And I was so surprised, Jen. I did not expect that. I thought that they were okay, or that they hadn't really been listening to me all these years when I've been telling them to save money and to do this and to do that. And when I heard that, I'm like, oh my God, that to me was like gratification, right? It was like, okay, confirmation that I did the right thing. And then things started kind of snowballing from there. From my kids, it went on to my nephews, my sister, my own family, who were waiting for somebody to just be right there in their backyard, pretty much in their community, to say, I need help. What can you help me with this? So
That's
it's just been very, very rewarding from that perspective.
That's good. And I can attest to the fact that your community, so, like I was telling you off before we went on, I've been around a lot of different financial people. A lot of different financial people because I used to run the financial literacy program from a big nonprofit in the south side of Chicago. So one of the things that I would do is I would always bring financial folks to teach. Like,
Hmm.
financial people love opportunities to teach on money, right? So it was always like I was always getting phone calls or emails like, "Hey, can I come teach your students?" We had a school of like 300 students, GED, my medical assistants, just a whole bunch. And our organization wanted to prepare them financially as well because, like, you're gonna get a job. How are you gonna manage your finances now that you have this job, right?
Hmm.
But I remember meeting so many financial people, and you guys don't have, like, you, not you personally, but that industry doesn't have a good rep with the Latino community.
Hmm.
And my job was to protect my community. So I had to screen them, talk to them, and I would have financial people that I would put specific guidelines on how they can teach my community, pero they would literally break my rules. For example, I would say, don't collect emails or phone numbers. And I get the numbers game. I'm a salesperson. I understand the need for numbers to make phone calls. But when I was like, if they want your information, they will go up to you and we'll make sure that they can do that. But I remember one specific time where a gentleman, his like partner, the partner just started collecting emails. And I was just kind of like, this is why the Latino community doesn't trust financial people. But for this purpose, Leonor, you and your team, Blanca, Maria, you're so down to earth. You're so humble. I can see that your personalities are you really care about the community because you can see it, the way you talk, the way you present yourself, the way you carry yourself. Like, that is, for me, it's like gold because I know that you're really there to serve people and educate people because our community's been so vulnerable, right? As you know, we've been taken advantage of,
Oh my
right?
goodness.
People
Yes.
people don't, and there's people that don't even know how to write a check. I remember I had to teach
Oh yes.
my young self how to write checks, you know, um, to adults that were twice my age, right? And that just shows like the deep need our community needs good financial advisors that really care about the community. And that's
Yes.
what you guys are.
Thank you, Jen. And first of all, thank you so much for those words. And I'm so, so glad that it comes across because that's one of the things that I know in Blanca's team that we do emphasize every single day. We start off with the devotional. We, try to educate ourselves, and we always have a saying: it's the mission before the commission. And you're right. There's so
Mhm.
many people that I've talked to in the past few months that are so allergic to talking to a financial professional. Why? Because they don't trust people they've been had in the past. Their trust has been broken, or they've been taken advantage of, or just because something looked right, they had a product or something kind of shut down their throat type of thing, and all of that creates that distrust. And this is such a business built on relationships, on trust, and that good, kind-hearted relationship that you have to develop with people. And if you don't have that, if that does not come across, they're not going to trust you. I mean, this is our own family who've been working many, many, many years to amount to the little wealth that they have, and to entrust that to just anyone. I mean, that's huge. So
Yeah.
that's one of the things that I'm very, very happy to hear from you, that we do emanate that trust, and that ability to just trust us with what we're saying, because we are sincere. We do have the best interest of the client at heart. I recently met with someone. It's an elderly couple, and of course, before we ended the conversation, they're like, "Well, how do we know that you're not going to take us, for a run type of thing?" And I said, "Well, I would not do unto you if I didn't want that done unto me." And I said, first of all, I had to explain my credentials, because we have to let people know this is not a scam. This is something that it's legal. We're regulated by so many different industries, not just the state, but the SEC and FINRA, and of course, me being securities licensed. I have the responsibility to do the what's in the best interest of the client. In fact, there is a
Mhm.
regulation out there called Regulation Reg B, which is regulation best interest of the client, and we have to do certain things and more things even when we meet with people, so that Big Brother over here makes sure that I'm doing the right thing for that client. So. But people don't know that, right? So I have to explain that, in addition to the fact that yes, we're here to do the right thing for you, client, but like you said, especially in our community, the need to have that person you can talk to is so huge, huge.
Yeah. And
And
you're the perfect person for it, in all honesty. And I know you because you came to the retreat. We've had vulnerable conversations, right, where I personally know a little more about you than like I just met you in a networking event, right? So it's a little more, it's a different relationship I have with you and Maria, and I'm just getting to know Blanca, but I can really appreciate you guys with what you're doing because it's a need. Our Latino community needs people they can trust that are also Latinos, right? That also understand, like, something that keeps coming to my mind that I want to share is like people don't realize that all those buildings in downtown Chicago are finance buildings, right? Like you see these big skyscrapers, it's they're financial like businesses that build these buildings, right? So it's like I don't think people too many people realize like yes, money is a tool, and I think too many people have a fear
mhm,
around what people can do with money, you know? And you guys definitely put those resources and provide tools to make people's money grow or make that money work
mhm.
for them. And you said a great example over the weekend. Was it you? Was it you? I think you said it or Maria. Banks use your money. Can you
Oh,
talk a little bit about that?
oh my goodness, yes. So yes, let me just go back to a couple of points that you mentioned. Those scrapers that you see downtown, yes, you're right. They're all financial institutions, a lot of insurance companies out there, but I cannot recall one of them being specialized or catering to the Hispanic community or just to the communities in general. And that's a huge, huge void out there. And that's exactly where we come in, where that's our target market, making sure that we work with just the middle class, normal type of folks. Like I said, they don't come with from a lot of money. And yes, on Saturday we were talking about the fact that people have money in the bank. Why? Because they don't have any other options. They don't know any other ways that they can protect their money or have their money grow. And of course, the banks nowadays don't pay. Oh my goodness, not. I mean, you hear of like pennies when you have thousands of dollars in the bank and you still just have get pennies in interest. Well, what people don't understand is that when you have that money in the bank, those funds are aggregated and those funds get loaned out by the bank to institutions, to other lenders or people who need money at a very high rate. So in essence, we, the consumers, are helping the banks make that money, right? Because they turn that around. They use the money where they pay you a few pennies on the thousands of dollars, and they use that to lend to somebody else at a very steep rate. So those are the type of situations that we run across quite a bit. But once again, it's because they don't trust anybody else to look at their money. They don't think that there is anybody out there or any other options for that matter. And that's what we try to explain to people, that if you allow us, we can give you those options. We have strategies where you can put, if you don't want to move your entire, I don't know, 20,000 or whatever it is that you have saved up, let's do this. Let's parse it up. Let's do a little bit here and a little bit there. And of course, we have to get to know people and what their objectives are. What is it that they want to do with their money? Do they have liquidity needs? I mean, it's an entire assessment that we do. We just don't go in, nilly willy and say, oh, do this, do that. You can't do that. We always talk about the fact that it's like going to a doctor, because somebody will come in and they want to know right away, well, what can I do with this? What can I do with that? But okay, let's first, first steps first. When you go to a doctor for a physical, for example, you go in and you're not going to have the doctor prescribe anything right away, because the doctor doesn't really know what's going on behind the scenes. So we go in and do a full blown financial analysis if the person's open to it, and talk about a bunch of different things, like we call it the six pillars of financial stability. Talk about the cash flow. Does this person earn enough? Are they going to need money for major expenses? We talk specifically about what is it that they spend their money on. We also talk about, how about debts? Okay, let's just say that they do have a little money stashed in the bank, but do they have any debts? Do they have any credit cards in particular? How much credit interest are they paying? Because it doesn't make any sense to have a huge debt paying, I don't know, or being charged double digits, and you have that money in the bank earning not even a digit, right? So
Mhm.
talk about a lot of different situations that they may be facing that they're not aware of. So we have a full view of their finances before we recommend anything. And that's
Mhm.
huge. And that's something that I do want to emphasize, because it's not like you can just like go in and say, oh yeah, to put your money here or put your money there. Right now, I'm working with a client that kind of did the same thing. He was like, "Okay, senora, what can I do with this? And can you tell me where it's going to be protected?" And I said, "Yes, I can. But can you tell me a little bit more about your needs? What are your plans for retirement? Are you at the age of retirement?" This person looked very young, but I learned that she was like, this close from retiring. So there's a lot of things that you have to inquire about, and get to really know the person. And at the end of the day, it is a relationship driven business. So you have to just spend the time to develop their relationship, invest in getting to know the person and their needs before you actually recommend something.
That makes sense. That makes sense. I have someone here saying good morning. Good morning, Mary. She's a member of our community.
Oh, Mary,
Um, so I'm glad that she's here with us. So if anyone else is here, make sure you let us know hello. You say hello and you tell us what you're drinking this morning, if you're drinking anything, because we like to know a little bit more about your personality. So I think that this is a great conversation. I think too many people don't talk about building wealth or making money, right? Like, I think that's something that people are scared to talk about. Like, it's a taboo, right? Like,
yes.
you don't talk about your salary, you don't talk about how much you make, you don't talk about what you do with your money, right? That's something that is not shared with, right? I mean, and I'm sure there's still people out there in the world that still hide their money on their colchones, like
Oh,
you
yes.
that is their bank, the especially
Mm,
older people. I don't know, when I bought my house, I remember I went to the basement trying to look through every crack, and don't laugh at me. I was like, hey, this was an older woman that lived there, an elderly lady. Let me see if she hid some money in these walls.
yes.
So
No,
I went and looked.
We're laughing about it, Jen, but it is so, so real. Oh my goodness. I've come across some situations where you're like, "You're what? How much money do you have?" It's stashed in a little can in your pantry. I'm like, "What?" But
Mhm.
it's real. It's real, and bottom line, it's the lack of, trust. You know, they don't
Mhm.
trust the banking institutions, or they've already, had a bad experience that they're not gonna take that money and trust it to anybody else, but the need is very, very real, and people, I think, need to know there are options for their money to grow, and for them to leave a legacy for their kids. I been working with a lot of elderly parents, who, like you said, they have thousands of dollars in a sock in a drawer or under the mattress. I mean, it's very real. I thought that these were like, just urban legends, but it's very real, especially in our community. And people are like, this is my money. You're not going to take it. Well, we don't want to take it. We want to help you grow that so that, not only your kids, maybe they're out of the house, already graduated, but what about your grandkids? You can do something for them. And that's another way that people show their love, right? So that they can leave a legacy behind for them. But it's a little tough to penetrate that market when, like you said, it's been like a taboo, right? I grew up and I never knew if my mom even had a checking account. And
Mhm.
to be honest, we were so poor that we probably didn't have a checking account because we couldn't, even put money in the bank. We always had to live paycheck by paycheck. But that's another reason why we have to be prepared for those situations and not live paycheck by paycheck, just manage our finances better and have
That's
something there to guide you along the way.
That's good. Let me show these comments. I see people commenting. Rosario said, "Good morning, Rosario," another member of the community. Then we have Mary. "This morning I'm drinking my post workout shake."
Woohoo!
Nice. She's our beach body. And you need shakes, you reach out to Mary because she's all the beach body workouts and
Um,
products. And then we have Blanca, your partner. Good morning, drinking cafe bustelo this morning. Yum. That
oh,
is that is the strong coffee. That's the real
oh,
coffee.
I know. Like I said, I love my coffee, and I remember years ago when I was in college drinking my mini Cuban coffee, and that Bustelo came up right away. Like, oh yes, love it.
Yeah, and I want to just dabble a little bit about the conversation before we end. Like I had to learn anything about finances. My parents didn't teach me, right? It was almost like my first paycheck, and something you said that caught my attention was most of I would see my parents go somewhere and cash it, like at a grocery store or try to find un casa de cambio or something, right? To cash it.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember like my first paychecks when I was in high school, it was like, oh, let me go to the bank and cash it wherever they wrote the check out, right? But then finally it was like, I remember the banker like, why don't you open up an account and just direct deposit it in? And I was like, well, no one's teaching me this stuff. I'm in high school. Like, I opened up a checking account in high school by myself. Like, hello, like I'm pretty sure a lot of people are like that. Like we're learning on our own here.
Absolutely, and that's exactly what we find, that there's a huge lack of financial education in the high schools. I went to high school here in the States, and I don't remember being taught anything about banking. Of course, they teach you about home economics. So how do you, do groceries, or how do you manage your household in terms of the things that you have to do, the chores, but not finances. And of course, unless you're actually taking a course on accounting, you don't know what a debit versus a credit is. But even that doesn't teach you, oh, yeah, you have to open up an account. And if you want to, keep a positive balance, you do this, you do that. Or these are ways that you can prevent emergencies or be prepared for emergencies, nothing like that. So that's what we find, that these type of simple concepts, I call them, are not taught in school. And not only we have lived it, but the people that we talk to, like, oh my God, we didn't learn this. I have somebody in the family who's a teacher, and they're like, oh my God, we're going to have to take this to the school because we don't have a class like this, and you ladies need to come and teach this. And I'm like, yeah, very happy to do
Perfect.
so.
Yeah, they need to know, and they need to know how to write a checkout. They need to know, how to balance their checkbook. And I don't even know if people, even adults, they probably don't balance their checkbooks, right? Like, it's kind of like, let me just put it on this card, yeah, let's see,
Well,
you know.
gonna say, you brought up card. There's a huge, huge misconception. I remember vividly when I graduated from college, and the very first piece of mail that I got was from a credit card company. You have been approved
Mhm.
for, $5,000 or whatever the thing was. Oh my God, I was like, I made it. I'm an adult now. I have a credit card. And they hype it up so much that, of course, you feel wonderful going into a store, not having any money and just wiping that little thing. And before you know it, your debt amount is like yay high and you don't know how to get out of that. And that's one of the huge, huge misconceptions with credit cards. They're there, but not to be used, not unless a huge dire emergency that you already dipped into your emergency fund, and I mean something really crazy. But it's the contrary. You have a credit card, and of course it's easy to go to the store and you want something. You don't need it. You want something, and right away pull out that piece of plastic and swipe it, and you're done. And that's not the way to go. And of course, companies are super happy with that because kids out of college are vulnerable. They think they made it like me, and of course, they're going to be the easy target just to get those credit cards in front of them. And like I said, before you know it, you're deep in debt, and to get out of it, it's very sad.
Yeah, it's definitely, and that's why we have you guys here. So that's great. Let me share again the video clip of your services so that those that are watching, it's literally 30-second video, you guys. So watch this real quick. Awesome. So, Leonor, if someone wants to reach out to you, where can they go to reach out to you if they're interested in learning more or they want to get to, learn more about what they can do? Maybe they need that free financial analysis and they want to reach out to you. Where can we send them?
Well, first of all, we have the Transformation Financial page out there. We also have individually our own phone numbers that we can share with people. And really, that's the best way to reach out to us, Transformation Financial.
This is it, right? Transformation.financial. They can go to learn more. And then what's your number for them to reach out to if they have any questions?
Yes, 630 two
Hmm.
zero two 6797.
There you go. There you have it, guys. If you guys
And
want to.
on Facebook as well, I've been getting a lot of people wanting to know more about the things that I post out there, and how to do this or that. So definitely find me on Facebook, Leonor Gil.
Nice. So there you go. If you guys have any questions, you want to learn more, reach out to Leonor 302026797. But I think this is good information that I mean, it's a good conversation. I know we just hit the tip of the iceberg. I mean, there's so much more that needs to be talked about that is
Yes,
not talked about,
yes.
right?
I'm sitting thinking, oh my goodness, how do I evade taxes? How to pay less in taxes? I mean, the subjects go on and on. We need another hour at least.
I know, right? So, if you guys have any questions, reach out to Leonor. She's on Facebook, active on Facebook, of course. And then, of course, if you guys want to, continue to follow us, you can find us on all the platforms at Women's Self Development. And then we have, of course, we have our website, womensselfdevelopment.org. And then, of course, finally, we do have a free Facebook community. So, we'll be doing actually, we're going to be launching a challenge next week in that group for women that want to be unshakable, faith filled, and purpose driven. So I'm excited about doing this challenge. So definitely look for this group. But thank you so much, Leonor. I really appreciate you being on with us this morning. I know I usually ask my guests to get up early in the morning. They're like, oh, I'm up for you, Jennifer.
Just for you. Thank you, Jen. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here once again. It's always a pleasure talking to you. And of course, glad to be sharing some golden nuggets for our community. And please don't hesitate to reach out, have an initial conversation. The other thing that I want to mention to you is which I forgot to mention on Saturday as well. Our services are free of charge. Let me say that again. We don't charge anything to do any financial assessments. So please take advantage of that. If you're listening out there, don't be shy. We're not going to judge. Just let us have the opportunity to help you via a financial analysis free of charge.
Yes, this is great. Thank you so much again, Leonor. Thank you for everyone watching. We definitely appreciate you guys, and I hope you have an amazing rest of your week, all inspired and ready to take on the world.
Thank you, Jen.
Thank you. God bless you. Bye.